Good morning.
Good morning.
How is everyone? I'm glad to be here again. I had told Harold that I'll be speaking about my experience with churches and synagogues and house of worship that I've been visiting the past few years. And I'll say a few words. But somehow I was inspired to talk about what we call the greatest name. What I want to tell you about my experience with churches and synagogues and the place of worship is that the past few years, more than ever before, I have done what Baha'u'llah wants from us to do, which is associate with people of all faiths, right, in a spirit of amity and concord. I don't know how many of you do it, but I have to admit that I was not doing it until 30 years ago. 30 years ago I said that, this is one of our main principles, associate with people of all faiths in the spirit of amity and concord. And I started going to Muslim house of worship, mostly Sufi places, and just associating with people and going to churches. And my life has become more and more complete, I feel. Because if you have all these beautiful teachings about oneness of mankind, all religions are one, but only stick together here, right? Or another place, or this feast and that feast is wonderful, it's good. But I felt it wasn't good enough until I practiced it. And as I started practicing it, I felt that I was more complete as a Baha'i, because a Baha'i is one who feels that everyone is our family, right? We're all members of the same family. And until I did it, I felt something was lacking. Something was lacking. And I was there for the most part to listen, to experience, to feel within myself that thought of oneness. Because it's one thing to say it, it's another thing to experience it, to really feel within, right? That we're all members of the same family. I should feel it before I start talking about the Baha'i faith. I should feel it, that I really believe in it. And this year, with the grace of Baha'u'llah and God, so far in this year alone, 7 churches and other places of worship have invited me to speak about the faith. The last one of which was on August 24th, perhaps my best and most emotional experience. Because the wonderful minister, Richard, whom I dearly love, he says, don't call me a minister or a reverend. I'm just a spiritual leader trying to help others the best I can. And he truly exemplifies that. And he asked me to come, and more directly than ever before, he asked me to speak on the question of introduction to the Baha'i faith. And I wasn't bashful. I spoke about all of our principles, our teachings, and our love for them. And that love was reciprocated. The invitation was for 2 hours. I didn't bore them for 2 hours. I had our children, like what you have, all the children over here, children and pre-youth and youth, and grown up to stand up and say prayers, recite songs. And then I spoke primarily about about the greatest name that I'll tell you about. Some of you know, some of you don't. And our house of worship in Chicago. And because I said I want to talk about the greatest name, I'll leave the rest of the story for next time. Harold, are you going to invite me again? Yeah, okay. He'll invite me again. So I'll talk about that. But I told them about this idea of house of worship. 9 sides, right? 9 doors. All faiths on the globe. Come through any door. Sit anywhere you wish. Pick up any holy text that you want. And read it. And reflect on it. There is no preacher. There is no minister. That's our faith. I was in another church where I told them about our greatest name. There's one God. There's one race, which is the human race. And there's one religion, right? Which has been revealed to man through time.
Yes.
That's it. So that other church where I spoke about the greatest name, they asked me to put it next to the photo picture of Jesus on their podium, next to their podium. And it's there. I go there at least once a month. So they have the symbols of all faiths, including the Baha'i faith. So many others are doing what we are also doing. And I wasn't aware of it until I did it, right? Now this is the faith of God, and it's working through people of all faiths.
Yes.
Working through all people. And they truly exhibit that in that place where I talked about the greatest name. They have that sign, they just love me and love Baha'is, and we go and associate with them in the spirit of amity and concord, which is our teaching. And in this other church, the Unity Church, where we were there for 2 hours, and I spoke about this house, our beautiful houses of worship around the globe, and the vision of Baha'u'llah, that this is really the same faith of God. What does Baha'u'llah say? This is the changeless faith of God. Eternal in the past, eternal in the future. Same faith. It is man who has confused it, who has divided, right? Who causes all this enmity. But it's the same faith of God. Eternal in the past, eternal in the future. And it was hard for me to believe the couple of days after that talk and after that visit. One of their associate ministers called and told me something that perhaps you'll be also surprised to hear. What do you think it was? I may have told Harold. He said, we are so impressed with this Baha'u'llah's vision of house of worship. We want to pay the seed money so that you Baha'is begin such a church in Georgia. He meant it. I don't know whether he wanted to pay $100 or $1,000, whatever. And I thanked him. And I told him that Baha'u'llah wants only those who truly, truly believe in all of these things. And I told him that, I don't know when, but in the next few years, your church and our church will become one. Because we're working on the same path. He said, when you truly, truly believe in it and sign up the card, then you can pay whatever you want. Right? So he accepted it. So, but this is work in progress. I have to tell you more when it is more complete. I've got to tell you one more thing about it. I told him that, in 30 minutes I cannot really introduce the Baha'i faith. Baha'u'llah, who was in prison for 40 years, he wrote 100 volumes. And with my little knowledge and understanding, there's so much to say. I can't say it in a half hour. Will you invite me again? Just like I'm asking her. He said, yes. But then more. He agreed for us to have a class on the Baha'i faith beginning January of 2015 in their church. Amazing how God works through us.
Thank you.
Amazing. We just have to start walking in His path.
Thank you.
Yes.
We just have to start walking on His path.
Yes.
We have to start walking on His path.
Yes.
So once again, let me say Allah.
Allah.
Now, for those of you new, this is the way Baha'is greet one another, right? Which means God is light, God is glorious, which is also a testimony to the beauty of this faith and Baha'u'llah, the founder of the Baha'i faith, who gave his life together with the Bab, his forerunner, the co-founders of the Baha'i faith,
Yes.
to bring mankind together,
Yes.
to show us that we are members of the same family, right?
Thank you.
Right. That's what it is. It takes a lifetime to really incorporate in our thoughts, in our feelings, in the way we walk, in the way we talk to each other,
32.
to the family of man, right?
Yes, sir.
The Baha'is have been working on it for what? For 170 years.
Yeah.
It may take another 170 years, but we won't give up, right?
Right on.
Until we all know we are members of the same family.
Thank you.
And there's one religion which has been revealed to man through time to bring us further and further to this ideal of oneness of humanity, right? That's what it is.
Image and likeness. Yes, Lord.
And now, last time I also began with Allah Apa, but I sort of stopped at that. I said I'll talk about Allah Apa later. There was a reason, a couple of reasons. I wanted to say that as a Baha'i, I'm obligated to say Baha'i, Allah Apa, how many times a day? 95 times. I have to admit, when I came that day, I hadn't said 95 times Allah Apa. There's a reason for that. Now, it may take 2 or 3 minutes. You know, those of you who work with your hands, you know. Allah Apa, Allah Apa. It's 15 for each hand, right? 2 hands is what? 30. 30 times 3 is 90. And this is say Allah, 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 Allah. That's 95. Yeah, and then we'll use the beats. Use the beats, or it takes 2 or 3 minutes. But he says it every day when you wake up. Just wash your hands, wash your face, and say it.
Breathe.
It brings you closer to God, right? It brings you closer to the manifestation of God and to what the vision of this faith is, right? That's what it is. Now, because so many days I've forgotten to say it, I wanted to see if there's a makeup bay. Is there a way to make it up? Is there a way to make it up? Unfortunately not. This is my loss. This is our loss if we don't say it. But I feel it. Since I say it regularly, I say that everything is relative. I'm relatively a better person. But yes, everything is relative. So let me begin by reading you the commandment of God, the commandment of Baha'u'llah in Kitab al-Das, right? With regard to Allah, one of the greatest names. That must say. It had been ordained that every believer in God, the Lord of judgment, shall each day, having washed his hands and then his face, seat himself and turning unto God, repeat Allah 95 times. So if you're a Baha'i, yes, we must say it. If you're not, start saying it. It helps you. It helps you become closer to God and to this idea of oneness and humility, right? But then in my pleading with God to see if there's a way to make it up, I was looking and looking, and then this was a passage from the Universal House of Justice, the body that is a governing body. They say you have asked about compensation for forgetting to recite the greatest name 95 times each day. And then they say no special prayer or verses revealed by Baha'u'llah in this regard. And this matter also is left to the prompting of the conscience of the individual. So it depends on us. So I'm trying to say it twice a day. Maybe it would help. And now, when we talk about greatest name, of course, it is with Allah, begins with Allah. Then we have two symbols. They say that a picture is what? Is worth 1,000 words, so I brought two pictures. It's worth 2,000 words. So I don't have to say much. One is this symbol, which Baha'is used reverently in their homes, in their houses of worship, which says, Ya Baha'u'llah Pa, the glory of glories. Also, another testament to the majesty of Baha'u'llah and his sacrifice and what he has done for us, right? As humanity. Just the beginning of Christianity, well, you're too young, you don't remember 2,000 years ago. But 2,000 years ago when Jesus came, nobody believed in him, right? Only a few, right? How long did it take until they finally got it? Humanity finally got it? Almost 340 years, right?
Yeah.
Until a percentage of humanity got it. When Constantine became a Christian, right? Until then, they thought of it as a small sect of Judaism, right? So it takes a long time until humanity gets it. But those of us, those of you who have ventured to come to this place of worship, you have ventured to see if there's truth in it. That the world is divided with nationalism, with racial animosity, with religious animosity. And somebody has to begin seriously. And Baha'is think we are seriously working on it with the help of these open-minded churches and synagogues and others, right? But this is the Word of God. And the Baha'u'llah wants us to put this sign prominently somewhere in our homes, right? In our offices, so we can remember. On a daily basis. Of course, the other picture is what I wanted to talk about. This is a ringstone, right? How many of you have that ringstone? You don't have to have it as a Baha'i, but if you have it, it's nice. You know, my father got this one for me. You know how many years ago? 60 years ago. Now you know my age. I was 15. And you took me to this shop on Istanbul Avenue. He asked me to pick a ring. What a nice gift. You know, you always keep it. All these other things, I don't know what happens with them, but you always keep it. And so, this is the symbol I want to talk about. And I want to talk about Ya Baha'u'llah Pa. And we also said a few words about Allah. So in this regard, I want to read a passage from what Baha'u'llah tells us with regard to Allah, and then what Abba tells us about all of these. Now, in explanation to Kitab al-Aqdas, the most holy book, it is said that the greatest name is the name of Baha'u'llah. Ya Baha'u'llah Pa is an invocation, meaning, O thou glory of glories. Allah Pa is a greeting, which means God is the all-glorious. Both refer to Baha'u'llah, according to this explanation. By greatest name is meant that Baha'u'llah has appeared in God's greatest name. In other words, he is the supreme manifestation of God for this age. That's the significance of it. And then let me read this beautiful passage from Abdul Baha with regard to greatest name. Abdul Baha says, the greatest name should be found upon the lips in the first awakening moment of early dawn. It should be fed upon by constant use in daily invocation, Ya Baha'u'llah. When you're in trouble, under opposition, and should be the last word breathed when the head rests upon the pillow at night. It is the name of comfort, protection, happiness, illumination, love, and unity. I hope that thou mayest become informed of the concealed mystery of the symbol of the stone of the most great name. The use of the greatest name and dependence upon it cause the soul to strip itself of the husks of mortality and to step forth free, reborn a new creature. That's the purpose of faith, right? That we are reborn to become a new creature. And that's also the purpose of this as a reminder, Baha'u'llah tells us. We don't have to have the ring. We have to say Allah upon 95 times a day. But it's very much encouraged and recommended to have it. Now, when you go to churches or other places and there are a bunch of people, they usually, and your two Baha'is greeting each other, do you say Allah Akbar, or do you say good morning, good afternoon? Or either, what do you think? Let me read what Shoghi Effendi says. The Baha'is are free to greet each other with Allah Akbar. This is what we did here. But when I went to the church, I didn't say Allah Akbar. Nobody would understand. So they said that you can say Allah Akbar to each other when you meet if you want to. But they should avoid anything which to outsiders in a Western country might seem like some strange Oriental password, right? So we must be very firm on principles and laws, but very normal and natural in our ways, so as to attract strangers. So what he's telling us, it seems that you know we need to be cognizant of our environment, right? It is something we are familiar with, but many others are not. So we don't have to say Allah Akbar anytime we go, and most of the friends are Muslims or Christians or Jews, until they become familiar with these teachings. There was also a passage from Al-Baha, if I can put my hand on it, that Abba is pleading with us to both wear this symbol and also to say this invocation, which was really along the same path. So let me just go back and talk the remaining few minutes about this symbol, which is really, particularly for those of the friends who are new, it explains what the Baha'i faith is all about. As I said, the 3 lines symbolizes the world of God, the world of man, the lower one, and the middle one, what? The world of manifestation of God, prophets, religions. And the connecting line is what? That God and man can be linked together only through manifestations. As we know, there are many liberated groups who say that I believe in God, right? I don't believe in anything else. I believe in God and I don't believe in anything else. But what does Baha'u'llah tell us? Or all the manifestations tell us? They tell us it's impossible, right? It's impossible to say I believe in God because nobody knows the nature of God. Baha'u'llah says God is the unknowable essence. God is the unknowable essence. We can only know Him through the teachings of manifestations. And Baha'u'llah tells us, and Al-Baha explains, that if it were not for the manifestation of God, the world of humanity would be all wild beasts. He uses some wild beasts. It is because of their teachings that gradually humanity has become civilized. At least a good part of it, we hope. Right? So it is through the Word of God. So Baha'is believe that knowing God without manifestation of God is what? It's impossible. It's only through that. The other thing I want to say, does anyone know who designed the greatest name?
I wonder actually if you could take it out of the sleeve.
You can see it better. Yeah. There's another cover. But I thought you were going to answer the question. The question is, what was the question? The question was, do you know who designed it? Abdul Baha. Abdul Baha designed this, and Mishkan Ghalam, who was a calligrapher, completed the design. So now this, what you see here, this form, is a letter in Farsi. What is that letter? Letter B. And what does that B stand for? The Bab. The Baha'i faith has what we call the co-founders, the Bab and Baha'u'llah. So that also stands for the Bab as the forerunner and co-founder of the Baha'i faith. And then this, on the two sides of both God and humanity, is also this letter, which is in Farsi is He, which is equivalent to edge. And what does that edge stand for? Baha'u'llah, the He part of Baha'u'llah. So in this design that Abba put together, it both tells us about the three steps and also tells us about both the Bab and Baha'u'llah, or the manifestation of God for this age, complemented with these two stars. And the two stars are in the form of what? The human form. And that star, which is the human form, are the co-founders of the Baha'i faith, the Bab and Baha'u'llah. So that is the vision, right? Pretty simple and profound. And it's wonderful to have it at all times with us. Let me find another relevant passage and conclude with that this segment.
Are you finding that? Remember they come as the twin trumpet blast of God for this day.
As the twin manifestation of God for this age. And we are doubly lucky, right?
Yes.
That we have them both, who gave so much.
Yes.
You know, the Bab, the forerunner, was executed by the Persian government in 1850. He was a young man. He was barely 30 when he was executed. And then a few years later, Baha'u'llah said that the messenger that humanity was waiting for, in different names, was Baha'u'llah. Now, isn't it interesting that all faiths are waiting for a Messiah? And they all give it different names, but Baha'u'llah says they're all one and the same. Hindus are waiting for the coming, for reincarnation of Krishna, right? That's the name they give. Buddhists are waiting for the fifth Buddha to appear. Zoroastrians are waiting for Shah Bahram to come. Jews are waiting for the Lord of Hosts to appear. Jesus are saying that Jesus would return in the glory of the Father. Now, of course, there were stories and images of the saying that he would come out of the clouds riding on a horse. But of course, one of the principles of the Baha'i faith is what? That science and religion should agree. If it doesn't make sense to you logically, it doesn't make sense. These were just stories, right? So, all of these things. So, and then Muslims are also waiting for the return of Jesus and the coming of Qa'im and Mahdi. So actually in all these faiths, there's all the reference to the twin manifestations that you refer to. They're coming.
Maybe, I do have a question for you.
Sure.
And when you talked about the promised Qaim and the promised Mahdi, does it refer to a single entity? Does it refer to twin manifestations? Or does it refer to Baha'u'llah and the Bab?
Thank you for the wonderful question. Many religions have been divided into sects, including Islam, which is divided into 72 sects. The two main sects being what? Shia and Sunnis. The Shias, in their tradition, they believe in the coming of Qa'im, who is the 12th Imam, and return of Imam Hussein, who was the martyred 3rd Imam. So Qa'im then is equivalent to the Bab, and Imam Hussein is equivalent to coming of Baha'u'llah from the Shia tradition. The Sunnis refer to coming of Mahdi, the promised one, the Bab, and also return of Jesus in the glory of the Father, which is Baha'u'llah.
One more question. Remember in the tablet of Ahmad that he the revealer of the mother book, did ye but know? Could you bring the significance of the mother book? Who was Bob from is the mother book revealed in the mother book?
Oh, the revealer of the mother book?
Yes.
I'm not sure what you're referring to, but of course the mother book, the Bab, most of the writings of the Bab is really in praise of Baha'u'llah.
Yes.
And in waiting for his followers for this supreme manifestation of God to appear, to bring about this oneness of mankind, the harmony about all religions and all of that. So the mother book, of course, from our perspective, is the book of laws, Kitab al-Aqdas. Now, Kitab al-Aqdas was revealed in 1873-74 in Accra, but that also reminds me that does anyone know when Baha'i started saying Allah Akbar from all your readings? It was actually around 1864. Where was Baha'u'llah in 1864? In Adrianople. This was right after he had openly revealed himself in the Garden of Rizwan in 1863. So in 1864, they were still called the Babis, the followers of the Bab. Their greeting was what? Was Allahu Akbar, which came from Islam. So they began saying Allah Akbar from the time they were in Adrianople. And you will read it in page 176 of God Passes By, that I'm sure you have read. But I've forgotten it too, I have to go back.
Understood. Thank you.
Where is the class going to be held?
Where is what?
You said that there was going to be a class.
Oh, the class. The class would be at the Unity Church on Sandy Plains Road, close to the Baha'i Center on Sandy Plains Road. Between Shallowford and Highway 92. They have a huge church which accommodates 1,000 people. And this open-minded minister said, I hope one of these days we can invite all the Baha'is in Atlanta and all the Unitarians and we all get together here and celebrate. And that they will also come.
Thank you.
Let me also say about this booklet something. This booklet is actually completed by, done by Hand of the Cause, Mr. Faizi, who explains everything you need to know about these three things. Allah, Yahweh, Allah, and greatest name. And this was first published in the Baha'i News in 1968. And then it's put into this book. But now if you go to internet and just type in the greatest name, you will see it all.
We really appreciate the talk this morning. Like I said, we learned an awful lot.